Marathon is the latest game from Bungie, the makers of the Halo and Destiny franchises, arena shooters and looter shooters respectively. And Marathon is an extraction shooter, which is a very polarizing genre by nature. And across several previous alpha tests and the recent public server slam, I've played quite a bit of Marathon and have a pretty good grasp on how the game works and who it is made for. So if you're on the fence about it or simply want to know more information, today I'm going to help you decide if it's the right game for you and thus whether you should buy it or not. First of all, Marathon is an extraction shooter like Escape from Tarkov or the massively popular Ark Raiders. Marathon aims to position itself somewhere in between these two games in terms of what the experience offers. In an extraction shooter, you load into a map, which in Marathon's case are several locations on the planet Tau Ceti IV that range rather drastically in their combat engagement ranges and appearances. And the goal is to loot as many valuables as you can by either finding them on the ground or by killing other players. And furthermore, similar to Ark Raiders, Marathon also has an AI enemy faction known as the UESC, which are coincidentally robot adversaries as well. But they are far less core to the experience of Marathon and are instead more of an obstacle when it comes to traversing the maps. There's no queens or matriarchs to be found here, but they're still a serious threat and must be dealt with accordingly. After you've collected a desired amount of loot, you have the option to extract from the map and keep the items you found to either bring into your next run or stash away in your vault. And doing so works like any typical extraction shooter. Simply hit the button, wait around nervously for around 60 seconds, then get the hell out. Dying along the way will, however, make you lose all of the items you brought in, and there's also no safe pocket like from Ark Raiders. Everything goes. So particularly if you're someone coming in from Destiny where your loot is everything, you may find it hard to lose. However, the game does have systems to combat the loss of gear, which we will get into later. Marathon also features proximity voice chat to allow you to communicate with enemy players in hopes of establishing a truce or just plain trash talk after successful eliminations. Moving along, Marathon is the first extraction shooter to feature playable characters as part of your loadout, and at launch there will be 6, technically 7, runner shells for you to choose from, which all feature very distinct playstyles. Destroyer is your typical tank class featuring a riot barricade to block incoming fire, but also sports tactical sprint and air dash movement abilities to close the gap between enemies. Vandal is purely a movement focused shell featuring power slides, double jumps, and energy blasts. Recon is an intel character that can expertly track down enemy players with seeker drones, wall hacks, and interrogations. Assassin is, as the name suggests, the stealth class which can freely go invisible and shroud enemy vision using smoke devices. Triage is the medic featuring healing drones and an ultimate that can revive downed or even full killed teammates. And Thief is the loot goblin class that can see high value loot through walls, who also has a grappling hook. She reminds me a lot of Loba from Apex Legends. Finally, there is technically a 7th shell, that being Rook, and playing as Rook lets you load into trio matches as a solo that are also in progress. He's very much a measly scavenger who lurks around taking any loot he can from previous fights. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I see a Rook, it's time to start blasting. No mercy. Each of the runner shells also have the ability to slot up to 2 cores, which can alter or enhance their abilities. Examples include a prestige core for recon, which in Marathon speak is exotic or gold, the highest tier essentially, which upon downing an enemy player pings the rest of their team. A superior or legendary core for Vandal, which allows your double jumps to lift you higher, or a prestige core for Destroyer, which allows damage absorbed by your riot barricade to be converted into shields. So there's quite a lot of room for build crafting and changing how a certain character plays. Speaking of build crafting, yeah, this game has a lot of it. The cores we just spoke of are the first step, but after that you can get these things called implants, which enhance your character's various stats and provide a wide range of additional bonus effects, which also come in the standard white, green, blue, purple, and gold tiers. And yeah, this game also has a character stat system with 10 different stats you can influence, which all do different things. All of which, by the way, can come in prestige or exotic variants that have another layer of effects. The rabbit hole goes very deep, which can either be a complete turn-off or something you might find yourself really getting into. Because I promise you that a few months down the line, when people have their perfect build set up for every run they play, it's going to be very hard to compete if you also don't do the same, especially when it comes to the ranked mode, but more on this later. The best way I can describe gold items in this game is like how they work in Apex Legends. Like for example, the gold backpack in Apex gives the same amount of backpack space as a purple one, which is also true in Marathon, and the gold pack in Apex has a perk which allows you to stack more heals per slot. And in Marathon, it can be a range of things because it's random, but my friend got one with a perk which made it so his stowed weapons reloaded 10% of their magazine every second, as well as generating ammo after eliminating a target. Speaking of eliminating targets, let's talk weapons. And Marathon is launching with around 20 28 unique weapons which come in all shapes and sizes. You've got SMGs, pistols, assault rifles, railguns, snipers, marksman rifles, shotguns, and some are ballistics based, whereas some are energy based, and thus their characteristics are accordingly different. And chances are you'll be able to find a gun that suits your style because of the wide range of options. And with regards to the guns themselves, with Marathon being a Bungie game, the actual gunplay is absolutely stellar. Guns feel snappy and super satisfying to use and shoot. It's arguably their best work yet, and if this is something you liked from either Destiny or Halo, then you will certainly love it here. Continuing the conversation regarding Bungie's best attributes, the visuals of Marathon are incredible. The graphics, especially on max settings, are something you can easily sit and stare at for hours, breaking down all of the minute details. And the sound design in the maps deserves a dedicated shout out because it's just so good. Both of these things come together to produce a living world that also works to amplify the danger you are putting yourself into. At launch, Marathon is going to have 3 playable maps, these being Perimeter, the beginner-friendly map that features wide open spaces and largely spread out POIs, Dire Marsh, which is a smaller, more risky map that can attract a higher frequency of PvP encounters, as well as Outpost, which is a mostly closed-in UESC facility featuring acid rain forcing you inside and heavy amounts of close-quarters combat that is sure to become one of the main PvP hubs. And finally, there is also the Cryo Archive endgame map that takes place on the actual UESC Marathon spaceship. And this map has been described as the ultimate endgame that you must be prepared for by bringing in your best stuff, and is slated to feature puzzles and potentially even raid-like bosses from Destiny, which, to be completely honest with you, is going to be the main motivator for my grind. It does seem very interesting how one of these gameplay staples from Destiny could be approached under the umbrella of an extraction shooter, and I'm very much looking forward to how it plays. However, Cryo Archive will not be available at launch and instead will need to be unlocked by the players. If you're looking for a quick summary on the maps compared to something like Arc Raiders, Perimeter is like Dam Battlegrounds, Dire Marsh is like Buried City, Outpost is like Stella Montis, and Cryo Archive is basically its own thing. We haven't seen anything like it yet in any other extraction game, which might be a good enough reason for you to try it. Now let's talk about the various ways in which Marathon allows you to play the game. And at launch, you're going to be able to queue solo or as a squad, with a maximum party size of 3 players referred to in-game as your crew. You can also queue as a duo, but you do still have the chance to encounter full trios as a duo crew, as currently at the launch of the game there is no duo queue. However, it is something that the developers have acknowledged, so we could potentially see duo queue in the future. Solo queue is also completely solo, and you will not face duos and trios. And I believe the amount of teams or players varies per map, but for squads it's anywhere between 5 and 7 teams per map, and for solos it's around 6 or 7 players total per map. Speaking from personal experience, playing as a trio with full comms is by far the best way to play Marathon because you have the most control and lethality as a team. Solos, on the other hand, is a completely different game. And I'll tell you this now, it is also a total rat fest. If you want to come out on top as a solo, you need to play slow, listen carefully for cues that indicate an enemy player may be nearby, execute or attack swiftly, and quietly get out. So if you aren't a fan of ratting style gameplay and you don't have a squad to play with, this may not be for you. Of course, this isn't to say that you can't have success through other means in solos, but like I briefly alluded to earlier, Marathon is definitely a more hardcore extraction shooter, and at least when compared to Arc Raiders, you won't find many friendly players since most people are out there to kill you. It's a cruel world on Tau Ceti IV, so in order to survive, you must be prepared to adapt. Like I mentioned earlier, you can also play as Rook, which is exclusively solo only, but doing so will load you into an already ongoing trio match. So every fight you take with players is a guaranteed 1v3, which is very risky, but can lead to some cool zero to hero moments and clutches. And actually, as time goes on, if you level the in-game factions, Rook will become a lot more powerful, allowing him to spawn in with all sorts of blue gear like a backpack, multiple weapons and implants, cores, etc. So don't completely write him off. Speaking of factions, we definitely ought to discuss them because factions are the main progression mechanic that Marathon has to offer. And at launch, there will be 6 of them: Cyberacme, New Caloric, Traxxas, Maida, Arachne, and Sekiguchi. If you're coming from something like Arc Raiders, you can picture the faction system as essentially your skill tree and your workbenches combined, because leveling up factions grants you access to certain upgrades which can do things like permanently upgrade your character's stats, unlock the ability to buy specific higher rarity items, or directly upgrade moment-to-moment gameplay actions like map scans. It should also be stated that Marathon doesn't have a crafting system. Everything you can buy from the store is bought exclusively with credits, or you can barter materials you find in-game for certain items. But how in Arc Raiders you would craft the guns you want with materials you find in the world, in Marathon you can simply just buy them with credits, provided you have invested in the faction upgrade which allows said purchase, which is something you may or may not appreciate. Of course, not all items are purchasable from the store, and most of the better ones are to be found in-game anyway, but still I thought this was worth highlighting. Leveling up factions is going to be the main long-term grind in Marathon, since from what we've been told, it takes a considerable amount of time and resources to max out even one of them. So if you like long grinds in the games you play, then Marathon definitely accounts for this. Other than Rook, the factions will also be the main avenue used to purchase free kits, or sponsored kits as they are referred to in Marathon, otherwise known as zero-risk loadouts, for times when you might be down on your luck or just don't want to think about making a loadout and simply just want to jump in on the action. The factions will offer free or paid sponsored kits which come with a basic weapon and a small amount of ammo and supplies to sustain you on your run. And if you've never played extraction shooters before, I will say that running free kits is some of the most fun you can have in these games. Jumping in with zero risk and potentially coming out with a big score because you caught a super stacked team off guard is such a great feeling and really helps to mitigate gear fear. Marathon is also going to feature a competitive ranked mode. Not much is known about this though, however it will make Marathon the first extraction shooter to feature such a mode, so if you're a competitive person who's also into extraction games, this might just be for you. There will also be a microtransaction store and battle pass if that's something that bothers you, but to be honest, I'd be shocked if any live service game releasing nowadays doesn't have either of these. And actually, you can earn a significant number of cosmetics strictly through gameplay achievements, and some of them actually look pretty good too, so I'm thinking at least initially the microtransaction sphere will not be as invasive as one might think. Finally, for this last section, I want to address the elephant in the room, and that is the nature of extraction games being more demanding experiences to fully get what you want out of them. And I'll be straight with you, if you're someone with little extraction shooter experience, the first 2 to 4 hours of Marathon are not going to be amazing. Your starter loot is pretty poor, getting used to the systems present like the heat meter might become overwhelming, and things like the low time to kill might be a turnoff for you. But if you can make it past those first few hours, you start to get some purple gear, you hit a big score against a stacked enemy team, you find your first prestige item, the game really starts to shine. And from there, provided you don't seriously fumble the bag, it just keeps getting better and snowballing your account into the same juiced up level as the squads you killed from before. That is where Marathon is at its best. It should also be stated that Marathon is a far more brutal extraction shooter than something like Arc Raiders, but nowhere near on the level of Tarkov. It's definitely not friendly, but it isn't completely ruthless either. Most engagements with other players will result in fighting, but the opportunity for peace and friendship is still technically there because of prox chat, and especially with Rook, certain teams will just recruit you to tag along and have fun alongside them. But be warned, be prepared to fight for your loot. Also, to my Destiny players, since this channel is predominantly Destiny focused, speaking from personal experience, I went in with an open mind and was able to find something I liked. I think for me, the biggest thing I enjoy about Marathon is the faction progression and seeing my account become stronger over time. You quickly get over losing your loot, and when you stumble upon gold items, the thrill is just exhilarating. It's like finally getting that exotic you wanted to drop in Destiny 1, but also realizing that if you don't make it out alive, you've lost it forever, and the race to do so is quite a lot of fun. In summary, Marathon is a tougher extraction shooter that blends Bungie gunplay with a unique build crafting twist and character-based team play that results in a deep and expansive gameplay experience. However, the barrier to entry is relatively high, and if you can't find that spark within your first 2 to 4 hours, then the game might not be for you. Marathon is certainly a game built for hardcore fans of the genre that rewards PvP skill over anything else. It's clear the game has a specific audience in mind, and that's honestly very respectable. So I hope today's video helped inform your decision on whether to buy Marathon or not, and if you enjoyed the video and want to see more in the future, subscribe, like, comment, you know the drill, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.